With the ability to generate outrageous amounts of mana with a single tap, Jegantha the Wellspring looks to cast huge spells, all while taking home as one of the best 5-color commanders around. Hello everyone and welcome to another Commander Tactics Deck Tech. My name's Pope. In today's brew we will be tackling the infamous 5-color commander, Jegantha the Wellspring. This new companion from Ikoria Lair of Behemoth has stepped up and is ready to not only give us the colors of mana that we need, but also allow us to generate a ton of it. For 4 and a gruel mana, Jegantha reads, no card in your starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. And then what makes Jegantha real special is that we can tap it down to add Wooburg to our mana pool. This mana can't be spent to pay generic mana costs, and with this deck, Jegantha will not be our companion, but instead will be the legendary creature running the show. While we may not be able to use Jegantha's mana generation for generic mana, we will have many uses for the Wooburg production machine. In every deck tech up until this one right now, we addressed 3 main tactics to secure wins. But in this deck, we're going to be honing in on just 2 main areas in order to keep this deck as focused as a 5-color commander can truly be. Our first tactic we'll be using is what I like to call the tap dance. We've all seen it when someone taps a card to untap another card, then tap another one to activate something else. This meticulous display of tapping is how we're going to be leveraging Jegantha's ability, while also providing we have the highest APM at any Magic the Gathering table ever. Our second approach, as you can imagine, is to spend all of that newly generated Wooburgs on big, beefy spells that will outclass anything our opponents could play. We're talking huge, crazy things that are virtually uncastable without being cheated, but not for us. We are pure and honest casters, well, kinda. Through proper setup and knowledge of what to tap and what to untap, this deck aims to value out our opponents and control the field in the process, with the potential to combo off for a victory later on. All of this is built on the foundation of a $350 budget. And a quick disclaimer as we dive in. This deck is 100% built with the idea of fun and crazy interactions in mind. With clear lines of winning built in, this is not geared to be a 7 or 8 power deck. It is absolutely built to be more casual and played in a casual setting. And now let's begin by taking a look at all the spells that we are going to be getting on the dance floor in order to get the tap spectacle in effect. Starting off with Bloom Tinder and Feyburrow Elder. Both of these creatures have similar effects to Jegantha. Bloom Tinder says whenever you tap it, for each color among permanents you control, you can add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. And Feyburrow Elder, exactly the same. Tap it, for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. Feyburrow does have the benefit of getting +1 for each color among permanents you control and has Vigilance, but it does cost 1 extra white mana to cast. Both of these effects we can use in place of Jegantha in order to combo off, so they are very pivotal pieces to making this deck run. And then we have the squadron of untappers with Apheto Alchemist, Fate Stitcher, and Kiora's Follower. Apheto Alchemist says tap it, untap target artifact or creature, and it can be morphed if we want to go that route. Fate Stitcher, similar effect. For 3 and a blue, we can tap it, and then we can tap or untap another target permanent, so this can be anything. And then Kiora's Follower, for only a green and a blue, we can tap it to untap another target permanent as well. Both Fate Stitcher and Kiora's Follower can be used on our lands if we have a land that generates lots of mana. And then a few more of our untappers in Puppeteer, Tide Force Elemental, and Thousand Year Elixir. You will notice all of these spells we have previewed so far have an extremely low CMC. That's because we want to get these out early, get their effects in play, and then be able to play our huge bombs later on. But Puppeteer and Tide Force Elemental, very similar effects. Pay a blue, tap it, you may tap or untap target creature. Tide Force Elemental does have the added benefit of whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we can untap it. And then our powerful artifact, 1000 Year Elixir for 3 mana. We may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. So any of these things that tap down, we can activate them the moment they come into play. And then for only 1 mana, we can tap 1000 Year Elixir to untap target creature. And then a couple more effects going to help us untap our stuff as well with Seedborn Muse and Murkfiend Liege. Seedborn Muse, we all love it, we all hate it. It says untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. So incredibly powerful, and with all the abilities and mana generation we have, Seedborn Muse is going to be a lock for this deck and help us just go off. And Murkfiend Liege, a similar effect, says for 2 and triple Simic, we get other green creatures have +1/+1, other blue creatures have +1/+1, and we get to untap all green and blue creatures we control during each other player's untap step. This means all of our tap downs and untaps will become untapped at every player's upkeep. 2 incredibly powerful effects that are going to enable us to go off on not only our turn, but every other turn as well. And then a few creatures that we will be using our untappers on with Fauna Shaman, Captain Sisay, and Zuran Spellcaster. Fauna Shaman, for only 1 and a green, we can pay a green and tap it down to discard a creature card and go tutor up a creature card, reveal it, and put it directly into our hand. If we can do this multiple times, we can assemble the exact lineup we need when we need it, thanks to all of our untapped mechanics. And Captain Sisay, a similar effect, but for 2 a green and a white, we don't have to discard anything or pay anything, but whenever we do tap Captain Sisay, we get to search our library for any legendary card. It doesn't have to be a permanent, it could be a planeswalker, it could be a legendary sorcery even, and then we get to put it straight into our hand. Also, as a side note, Captain Sisay did get the reprint treatment recently in a secret lair drop, and that card looks so gorgeous. So definitely check that out if you're thinking about picking this card up. And lastly, Zuran Spellcaster, 2 and a blue. Whenever we tap the Zuran Spellcaster, it is going to deal 1 damage to any target of our choosing. It is important to know that though, because if we do need to ping down a planeswalker, we can. There is a rata text that lets us target any target. And through the right combination of tapping and untapping all of these creatures, we can do a lot of crazy shenanigans. But to truly enable these combos to go off even more efficiently, these final 3 spells are going to help us make that happen, and that's Staff of Domination, Illusionist Bracers, and Pemin's Aura. Staff of Domination is a 3-cost artifact with many different abilities. For 1, we can untap the staff. For 2, we can tap it and gain 1 life. For 3, we can tap it to untap a target creature. 4, tap it to tap a target creature down. And for 5, we can tap it to draw a card. With many different lines of generating infinite mana with Staff of Domination in play, we just win the game on the spot. We can have infinite life. We can tap down all creatures at all times. We can untap any creatures we want. And of course, we can draw our entire deck. There's a reason this card commands a $30 price tag, but in a deck focused all around tapping and untapping, this is the pinnacle of power for that deck. And then because we are going to have tons of activated abilities, Illusionist Bracers is an equipment for 2 mana. Whenever an ability of an equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, we get to copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. A lot of our creatures that tap or untap aren't using mana abilities, obviously, so we want to get them equipped with Illusionist Bracers to really be able to set things in motion. And the last one, Pemin's Aura. For 1 blue, this enchantment aura says for blue, we can untap an enchanted creature. For a blue, we can make the enchanted creature gain flying until the end of turn. For blue, the enchanted creature can't be a target of spells or abilities. And then for 1 generic, the enchanted creature gets +1, -1, or -1, +1 until the end of turn. Pemin's Aura, attached to Bloom Tinder, attached to Feyburrow Elder, instantly leads us to an infinite mana combo. It can also be equipped to our commander, but if we do attach it there, we can only generate infinite colored mana that has to be used on colored mana. Each one of these 3 spells are absolutely game finishers, and when they come down, they will paint a target on your back. So make sure you are ready to deal with that whenever you cast them. But now that we've seen how the tap dance is executed, let's take a look at all of the payoffs we are going to be casting with all of the mana that Jegantha is going to be giving us. And let's start things off with, of course, our 5 colored friends. And that's Niv Mizzet Reborn, Maelstrom Nexus, and Maelstrom Archangel. Niv Mizzet Reborn, one of the coolest cards coming out of War of the Spark. For a Wooburg, we get a flying legendary Dragon Avatar. When Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, we get to reveal the top 10 cards of our library, and then for each color pairing, or each guild, we get to choose a card that exactly matches those colors and put that into our hand. The rest of the cards go onto the bottom of our library in a random order. If you're not familiar with Niv Mizzet, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to flip the top 10, and then for each Simic combination, Gruul, Orzhov, every guild, if we happen to land 10 different color pairings, we get to put them all into our hand. But the real likelihood is that we're going to reveal 3 or 4 spells that we get to put directly into our hand, so Niv Mizzet Reborn acts as a great card draw. And then 2 of my favorite cards reprinted in Mystery Booster, Maelstrom Nexus and Maelstrom Archangel. Maelstrom Nexus says for Wooburg, we get this enchantment that says, the first spell you cast each turn has Cascade. Cascade is such a powerful ability that says, whenever you play your first spell, remove cards from the top of your library from the game until you remove a non-land card that has CMC less than the card you just cast. You may play that card without paying its mana cost. Put the removed cards on the bottom of the library in a random order. So essentially with every cast with Maelstrom Nexus in play, we get to cast 2 spells off of that one. And then Maelstrom Archangel, Wooburg mana for this Flying Angel 5/5. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we may play a non-land card from our hand without paying its mana cost. Just a free ability to cheat in any card in our hand that we choose. If we can manage to ramp into Jegantha on turn 3 and then cast one of these guys on turn 4, maybe even a turn earlier, we will definitely be in a great position moving forward. And then along with these 5 color spells, we do have a couple 4 colored spells with Yidris Maelstrom Wielder and Yor Tiller Nephilim. Yidris Maelstrom Wielder, blue, black, red, green. This legendary creature has trample and says, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, as you cast spells from your hand this turn, so all of them will gain Cascade. So again, we just get a double up on every spell we cast, casting things with less CMC from our deck for free. And then Yor Tiller Nephilim, whenever Yor Tiller Nephilim attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to play tapped and attacking. Yor Tiller doesn't have to deal damage. All we have to do is enter combat and make it attack in order to get a free reanimate of any creature from our graveyard. And of course, we're going to have lots of good options. But the real gem of the deck is this next cycle I am so pumped to talk about, and that is the Bringer cycle. These 5 creatures, Bringer of Blank, has the ability to be cast with Jegantha. They all say, you may play Wooburg rather than pay their mana cost, meaning with Jegantha in play, we can cast any of these just by tapping our commander. They all have an amazing effect, so let's take a look at them now, starting with Bringer of the White Dawn, Bringer of the Blue Dawn, and Bringer of the Black Dawn. You'll notice a few things about all of them immediately. They all have trample, they're all 5/5s, and they all cost 9 mana originally. White Dawn says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return a target artifact card from your graveyard to play. A free artifact reanimation on a creature, extremely powerful. Blue Dawn says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may draw 2 cards. This means with Blue Dawn in play, we're going to be drawing 3 cards a turn. That's insane. Bringer of the Black Dawn, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 life. If you do, search your library for a card, shuffle your library, and then put it on top of it. With Black Dawn in play, at our upkeep, we get to pay 2 life, tutor any card to the top of our deck, and then immediately draw it that same turn. Red Dawn says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may untap a target creature and gain control of it until the end of turn. That creature gains haste until the end of turn, so we can just take over one of our opponent's creatures until the end of turn. And then Green Dawn, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to put a 3/3 Green Beast creature token into play. I think this synergy of the Bringers is an incredible combination with Jegantha, allowing us to get big creatures in play that all provide a very helpful effect. Well, besides Green Dawn just creating some 3/3s, but hey, the rest are pretty awesome. And then just in case we are having some trouble getting the mana we need with Jegantha, we have a few more ways that we can play the Wooburg Roulette with Joda, Archmage Eternal, and Fist of the Suns. Joda, Archmage Eternal says for 1 blue, red, white, so Jeskai, we can pay Wooburg rather than pay the mana cost for spells we cast. This means we'll be able to cast any spell from our hand for only 5 mana. And Fist of the Suns, exact same effect. You may play Wooburg rather than pay the cost for the spells you cast. With either of these in play with Jegantha, we will have the ability to tap it down and cast any spell from our hand. And lastly, one of those spells that we will hopefully be using this ability on, and that is the big bad Hydra avatar, Progenitus. For double Wooburg, so 10 mana, we get this legendary Hydra avatar with protection from everything. That's a lot of things. If Progenitus would be put into a graveyard from anywhere though, we reveal it and shuffle it back into our library instead. If we are able to tap down Jegantha, untap her, and then tap it again, we will then be able to cast this Mac Daddy of mana right then and there. Although there are a lot of ways that Progenitus can still be taken out, there's just something to be said about a board presence with this awesome creature on it. But now that we've seen how we are going to operate this deck and the amazing spells that we're going to be casting with all of the awesome effects, let's take a look at what else we got going on inside the 99. For removal and control with this deck, we have 9 great spells that we're going to be casting, including one of the new ultimatums coming out of Ikoria. If you want to see which one, definitely check the deck tech link down below. Card drawing advantage also in a good spot with this deck with 10 spells or abilities, allowing us to keep our hand full. Our ramp, very good. We're in green, so we have those Far Seeks and Cultivates to help us to get the mana and the right colors we need, but also a couple mana rocks in order to untap them to generate lots of mana. And the power level of this deck I have put right at a 5. It is focused, it has a targeted goal, but it is by no means powerful or nearly as synergized as many other decks. I think some people might even argue that this is a 4 or lower, but you know what? I like it, and I think it is good enough to compete with the most average of decks out there. Winning with this deck can be boiled down into 3 different options. Number 1, we're going to outvalue our opponents on the battlefield, and that means getting in for some big combat damage with some big creatures. To help us do that, we are going to be casting lots of Wooburg spells thanks to our commander. Things like Maelstrom and Nexus going to help us keep that value flowing. And then we have many different ways that we can combo off, generating infinite mana and using things like Staff of Domination to help us win the game on the spot. A few budget alternatives you might consider for this deck: Biomancer's Familiar, Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter, and Arcanus the Omnipotent. Biomancer's Familiar is going to reduce the activated ability cost of creatures we control by 2. Just that reduction of mana is very, very powerful. Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter, whenever we cast the first spell each turn, we get to reveal the top card of our library. If it's a non-land card with CMC less than the one we just cast, we get to play it without paying its mana cost, and if we don't cast it, we simply get to put it into our hand. And Arcanus the Omnipotent, 3 and triple blue, a little costly on the mana cost, but we can tap it to draw 3 cards. Then if we can untap it and abuse this, we are going to have so many cards, we really won't be able to be stopped. Some upgrades for this deck I thought would be pretty fun. Nyxbloom Ancient, I mean, come on. Just get to tap our commander for 15 mana, absolutely bonkers. Deathrite Shaman and Zerta the Dawn Waker. Nyxbloom Ancient, obviously if we tap a permanent for mana, which creates triple that mana, this card is just insane and absolutely enables our commander to do even crazier things. Deathrite Shaman, for only 1 Golgari, we can tap it to do crazy things, gain life, deal damage, and of course we'll abuse that with all of our untappers. And then Zerta, another ability reduction card, going to reduce the activation cost of all activations by 2, assuming they are mana abilities. This effect can't reduce it beyond 1. Zerta absolutely makes even more infinite combos possible with this deck and can help us just end games even quicker. But that does bring us to the end of this 5-color tap down fiasco that is Jegantha the Wellspring. We're going to create so much mana with this deck and cast some just outrageous cards, hopefully as quick as turn 3 or 4, and just watch the jaws of our opponents drop to the table. Jegantha has the ability to be super powerful, and I also think can be slotted into many of the other 5-color decks as well. Would go great in Joda, would go great in Ramos, so powerful in the 99 and powerful as a commander. But let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of this deck. Is it just too far gone, or does it look like it's a good time? You know, this deck is focus for me was fun. I want a fun, crazy deck that still has the ability to go off and get some wins. But if you're new here, hey, thanks so much for checking out the video. Maybe consider subscribing. New video every Friday. If you're a Twitter user, head on over there, drop us a follow at EDH Tactics. If you're a returning sub, thanks so much. We are closing in on that 1,000 sub mark so quickly. Hope everyone is staying safe, stay healthy, keep inside, keep those hands washed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for the next one.